Let us not forget everything that happens is by the will of Allah. It's time to unite and stand, and we will be the best amongst men. It's not time to be extreme or do the unthinkable, but to stand together as one. Into Sunnah followers, streaming every day, various platforms. Trust me, you'll find a way. Sunnah followers. Hey, I got a couple questions for y'all. The first one, who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your prophet? Now, I know this sounds crazy, but if you're one of those people that have been trying to get information and you come across this, or even this. All right, take a listen.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Sister lailanasheeba, the Managing Director and Founder of Sunnahfollowers Online Islamic University. As you know, we have classes every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we cover everything from Aqidah, which is your belief system, to Seerah, which are the stories of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the story of the companions. Please join us every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are broadcasting and streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, DLive, Trovo, and Twitch. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
This is from Sunnahfollowers. This is from Sheikh Saleh. We need to unite. Sisters, wear your hijab. Wear your beards. Be proud of your beards. Stay home, stay in your home. Stand up, unite, and stand for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That's right, Saleh. We all should stand up in solidarity, not transgressing the limits of Allah, but standing together with patience and understanding. This is Sunnahfollowers.
With dignity, humility, and balance.
Talk about Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Guys, mark your calendars. Friday, February 2nd, 2024, from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern. We have a special presentation by Muhammad Ziada, who works with the Broward County Sheriff's Department in Florida. We also have a special co-host, our very own Dr. Ibrahim Jamali. The special topic is the impact of social media upon this nation and how to climb out of its web. How to prevent social media from destroying you and your family, and how social media destroys marriages. Also, how we should not use social media as a format for looking for marriage. So tell a friend to tell a friend about this special presentation streaming right here on Sunnahfollowers. Join us every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern for the Access to Layla live call-in and answer show. Please join Ustada lailanasheeba. If you have any questions in regards to this theme, call in at 862-370-2838. Now streaming on various platforms right here on Sunnahfollowers.
She was known for having married 3 famous companions of the Prophet, namely Jafar, Abu Bakr, and Ali. She was sister to 2 of the Prophet's wives, and hers is a story of perseverance of such greatness that she was given the good news of paradise. Join Ustada lailanasheeba as she tells the story of Asma Bint Umays. Ina alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala, wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series of Heroines of Islam. And mashallah, tonight we're going to do the story of one of the heroines of Islam, one of the female companions, and her name was Asma Bint Umays. Asma Bint Umays. This woman was such a great woman that men of stature did not hesitate to offer themselves in marriage to her. And it always happened immediately after whoever she was married to died. Subhanallah. And that shows how times change now. Back in the beginning of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mission, you know, Allah sent down rights for all mankind, for humans of all genders, male, female, slaves, non-slaves, and animals even. And after Allah sent down the rights that we all have as humans, you know, Allah even went further to speak about the actions or things that we do as humans that please Him the most. And one of them is, you know, taking care of widows, taking care of women who have no husbands, and taking care of children who have no fathers. And the companions, they took this religion seriously. So if a woman's husband was killed fighting in the way of Allah, the men would wait till after the woman completed her mourning period, and then they would just step up and start asking to marry her. Because they wanted the reward. They wanted the blessing of taking care of a widow or of taking care of children who had no father. Times have changed terribly, because today, if a woman says she has children, most men shy away from her. If a woman has been married more than once, if she's been married 3, 4, 5, 6 times, the men shy away from her. Well, guess what? This female companion was married several times. And the men didn't shy away from her. They were breaking down the door trying to get to her as a husband. And had she lived longer, she would have always had the men breaking down the doors to try to have her as a husband. Because not only because of the reward that Allah gives a man for doing such, but also because she was a virtuous woman. Nowadays, you tell a brother that you've been married several times, they think badly of you. I don't know why. If a woman tells you she's been married 6 times, that should tell you something, that she don't put up with trash. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. You know, these are the days of fitan. Well, Shaitan makes the good appear to be evil and the evil appear to be good. Nowadays, a woman tell you that she's only been married once, you think, oh, she's virtuous, not knowing that she's only been married once. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only man she's been with intimately. But if a woman tell you she's been married 5 times, you think, oh, this woman got a sexual problem. No. All she had was 5 men. Whereas that person that had just one probably done been with 50. It's just one that she married. See how the times have changed. Well, tonight's story is going to be about one of the female companions. Her name is Asma Bint Umays. And let me take the screen down here, so everything down, so you can, I know a lot of you like to, you know, screenshot the PowerPoints and print them out. so you can have them to share with the children and whatnot. So I'm going to take it all down so you can see. And for the people on Zoom, I know all my students like to screenshot, so doing this for them, really. Oh, is this me? Is that me live? Oh, let me see. Is this me? I don't know. That's not me, is it? That might be the other class. Is that this class? No, that's the other class. I'm going to say, because look at the time on it. Okay, for the people on Zoom, I'm going to say, share you to, if I can get out of this, to this. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is Twitter. That was the last class. Let me refresh this page. And by the way, we are streaming simultaneously on all the major social platforms, including Twitter, as you can see here. There I am live on Twitter. Let me click on that. So the people in Zoom, y'all can see that. All right. And now I'm going to make it bigger, the screen larger, and everyone else should go to the snow and then me. Okay. Let me fix this up. Always. Okay. And put that, keep that there. And I think I stopped that. Let me keep that going for y'all. Wait a minute. Hold on for a second. It's the Zoom people. Okay, now that's it for you guys. Okay, now let me go to everyone here. You guys should be able to see. There it is. Inshallah, you can see my PowerPoint. And it's on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me make it larger on you. It's not large on there. I can see from this thing here. Okay, full screen. All right, there's full screen. And now let's share it and go from beginning. Okay, here we go. Inshallah, everyone should be able to see. So this is one of the heroines of Islam. Her name was Asma Bint, which means daughter of Umays. Let's talk about her. Now, we've been learning in our other seerah classes that to be an immigrant back in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, to migrate, to leave your land because you're not able to practice your religion without being persecuted, and to go somewhere else so you can practice. This is a great honor. We learned that, and a great privilege. But some of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam misunderstood the concept of migration. They thought that it was just the reward and virtues of migrating was just restricted to migrating from Mecca to Medina. So they assumed that the people who migrated to Abyssinia and stayed there had no reward for their migration. Again, and this is just how people are. We sometimes don't understand things. Well, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam set the record straight with this, because this bothered Asma, who was one of the female companions who migrated to Abyssinia. In fact, she was married. She was married to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's cousin, Jafar. So when she was able to meet up with the Prophet, she ran to him to ask him, was this true? She said, is it true that even though I left my home of Mecca and went to Abyssinia, I'm not getting the reward that those people who migrated to Mecca get? And the Prophet said, no, this is not true. He said, don't you know, Asma, that you completed 2 migrations, and the people that's doing all that talk only did 1. So you have an even better reward than they do, because you migrated twice to practice your religion. You migrated twice in the way of Allah. So that puts you of a higher status than they are. And I want you brothers to pay attention to this statement, because there are some men amongst us today who believe that women are ignorant and women are a lesser species than men are. Well, this refutes that. Asma was of a higher status because she did 2 migrations for the sake of Allah than those men that just did 1. And when the Prophet told her that, she was so happy, okay? Because she migrated from Mecca to Abyssinia, and then later from Abyssinia to Medina, all because of her love for Allah. And that's also when Allah sent down this verse when he said, was not the earth of Allah spacious enough for you to immigrate to? And this is what I was telling you guys yesterday when someone asked a question about, we were talking about the qadr of Allah. Everything happens because Allah wills it to. Allah is the creator of good, and he's the creator of evil too. And he's the one that wills everything to happen, good and bad. And some people were asking about, Gaza, some people still have a hard time with why is Allah allowing that to go on? Well, I told you guys, even the people in Gaza have not suffered more than the Prophet and his companions. History is nothing but a merry-go-round. History repeats itself over and over. The people in Gaza are going through nothing more than what the Prophet and them went through. They went through genocide too. They had to leave their homes and go to 2 different places to practice their religion. So again, Allah is in control, and everything happens because he wants it to. Everybody understand that? So this is what made one of the things that made Asma so notable. She asked the Prophet, is it true what they're saying, that the only people that get rewarded are those who went to Medina? And the Prophet said, no, you are on a higher level than many of them because you did 2 migrations. And so she was amongst those who went to Abyssinia. And she stayed there for all those years. But even though she and the people with her stayed for those years, they all wanted to be with the Prophet. When they heard that the Prophet had migrated to Medina and established an Islamic state there, that's when they left Abyssinia and rushed home so they could be in the presence of the Messenger of Allah. But when they reached Medina, even though they were tired, they were told that the Prophet and his companions were not there because that's when they had set out for Khaybar to do the battle there. But even though these Muslims had just arrived from Abyssinia and they were tired, they still packed their stuff and went to Khaybar so they could join in and help the Muslims there. But when they arrived, it was too late. The battle was over. Khaybar had been conquered. And when the Prophet ﷺ received the news that the people of Abyssinia had come, he said, I don't know for which reason I'm more happier. I don't know if I'm happier because of the conquest of Khaybar or because my cousin Jafar has arrived. Now, Jafar, he was the husband of Asma. And you guys should know who Jafar is. Asma embraced Islam very early, along with her husband, Jafar. In fact, they had just gotten married when they both set out for Abyssinia in the way of Allah. Their new marriage did not stop them from taking this big step. Instead of staying in Mecca and enjoying their honeymoon, they struggled in the way of Allah and left to go to Abyssinia. And you guys know who Jafar was? He was the one who approached the King Negus. He was the spokesperson on behalf of the Muslims. When King Negus asked about Jesus, Jafar was the one who told him what the Quran says about Jesus. And when the Negus asked about Mary, the mother of Jesus, he was the one that recited to Negus the words of the Quran about Mary. So she, Asma, was married to Jafar, who was the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad. And they were newlyweds. Okay? So she was a righteous woman, married to one of the family members of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, just so you guys know, after the King Negus allowed the Muslims to stay in Abyssinia, Jafar and Asma stayed there. They didn't try to come back to Mecca like Sauda did and like some of the others did. Okay? They stayed in Abyssinia for 15 years. For 15 years. In fact, that's where Asma had her children by him at. Okay? The Prophet kept in touch with Jafar and the rest of the people there by sending emissaries to not only teach them the new revelations as they came down, but also to check on them. So her and Jafar were there for 15 years. And when they did leave, they left when they right before the Battle of Khaybar. And when Asma left, she left with her 3 sons. She had 3 sons and she left with them. But she didn't know what was waiting for her when she arrived in Medina. Because right after her and her husband Jafar arrived in Medina, the Prophet appointed her husband, his cousin Jafar, to be one of the commanders in the Battle of Mu'tah. In fact, the Prophet told him, if Zayd ibn Haritha is killed, Jafar, you are to take over as the commander of the army. And just so you guys know, I want y'all to write this down. This is a trivia. This was the first and only battle that Jafar took part in with the Prophet. And this was the first battle that the Muslims fought against the Romans. The Muslim army consisted of 3,000 soldiers. The Romans had 100,000 soldiers. This is the Battle of Mu'tah. And the reason that this battle occurred was because the Prophet had sent a messenger to the king of Basra, inviting him to Islam. And Mukhtar talked about that in his class. This is when the Prophet sent letters to the leaders of the world, inviting them to Islam. Well, the person sent with the letter to the governor of Basra was killed by an ally of the Romans. And the Prophet wanted revenge. He wanted qisas for this. So that's when the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, called upon the Muslims, to go out and seek avengement for the murder of the messenger sent. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, told the Muslims that if Zayd, who was the commander, was killed, then Jafar should take up as the commander. And if he was killed, then they should pick a third one. So this is the first and only battle that Jafar took part in the way of Allah with the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, needless to say, guys, Jafar was killed. He was killed during this battle. And after Jafar was killed, that's when the Muslims appointed Khalid bin Walid to be their commander, because he had just converted to Islam and he was able to bring victory to the Muslims. But the Muslims lost 3 of their best commanders, one being Zayd and then the second being Jafar, subhanallah. And just as Jafar's performance with the King Negus was spectacular, you can imagine how spectacular he was on the battlefield. What happened was, as he was fighting against the Romans, when he realized that his horse was keeping him from being able to swing his sword freely, he got off his horse and he hit the horse so that the enemy wouldn't use it. And he rushed onto the battlefield with his sword in his hands to do one-on-one combat. And as he was fighting, he lost one hand, because with one hand, he was using the sword. And in the other hand, he was carrying the banner of Islam. And what was the flag of Islam? It wasn't like the flag of Palestine. It wasn't like the flag of Sudan. It was La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, one nation, one people. So they cut off his hand with the banner. And when they cut that hand, he picked up the banner with the other hand, and they took off that hand too. And that's how he died. That's how he died, because he refused to drop the banner of Islam. Later, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that Allah has replaced the hands of Jafar with the wings, and he now flies around paradise with wings. And he and Hamza will be leaders over the martyrs in paradise. So that's Asma's husband. Asma was married to him, Jafar, the cousin of the Prophet. When Asma received the news that her beloved husband was killed, she was greatly hurt. Tears of pain and sadness flowed from her, and she mourned his death severely until the Prophet came to visit her. The Prophet gave her 3 days to mourn the loss of her husband. And her son Abdullah tells us on the 3rd day, the Prophet came and he gave their family condolences. And he said, Asma, do not cry over my brother after today, because this was the 3rd day. He said, bring the children of my brother to me. So she gathered her sons, the 3 sons she had, and brought them to him. And the Prophet noticed that their hair had grown real long. You know, they had long hair. And remember, this is when the Prophet was teaching us to take care of our hair, to cut out, to comb our hair, to oil our hair, brush through it, comb through it. So he saw the 3 boys and noticed how unkempt their hair was. So he said, go fetch the barber. And the barber came and he instructed the barber, to shave their hair, because their hair was knotted. This is where that hadith about the knots came from. Don't let your hair grow and knot up. That's when the Prophet said anyone who has hair should comb it on a regular basis, brush it on a regular basis, oil it, comb through it. those 3 boys' hairs were in knots, like the dreadlocks you brothers like to wear. So the prophet had the barber shave their heads. This is more dalil about them dreadlocks. Y'all got to stop wearing them. They're haram. And then after having their head shaved, the prophet said, Muhammad, this one here, he looks like Abu Talib, our uncle. And then he said, and your son Abdullah looks like me, because they were all first cousins. He said, oh Allah, be the supporter of the family of Ja'far and bless Abdullah, because Abdullah looked just like the Prophet Muhammad. They were first cousins. So the Prophet made dua for Asma Bint Umays and her sons. And then after he did that, Asma said, O Messenger of Allah, my sons are now orphans. They have no father. And she began to cry. And the Prophet said to her, Asma, what are you afraid of? How can you be afraid of poverty? Because I am their guardian in this world, and I will be their guardian in the hereafter. In other words, he was letting her know that he would make sure that her sons were cared for. And after he told her that, Asma devoted her time to taking care of herself and her children. Remember, the Prophet taught them, because they had just gotten back from Abyssinia. Remember, Asma and her sons and Ja'far had been in Abyssinia for 15 years. For those of you who don't know, dreadlocks are not new. The Abyssinians used to allow their hair to grow. The Abyssinians used to allow their hair to grow and not up. You can Google it. That was just part of the Abyssinian culture. They would let their hair grow and not up. This was the first time the Prophet had seen the sons of Ja'far. And he ordered the barber to shave their heads. And that's when he said, comb through it. Comb through it. You can't comb through dreadlocks, people. Oil it and wash it. Okay? So Asma devoted her time to caring for herself and her children. She focused on them, taught them about Allah, taught them about the religion. The Prophet used to check on her, and he'd check on his cousins, her sons, and would show kindness to them by way of gifts. So there's more dalil about your dreadlocks. And by the way, you'll find all of this in Bukhari and Muslim and Muwatta. Okay? Now, it just so happened after Khaybar, the day of the Battle of Hunain came. When the Battle of Hunain came, this is when we lost another heroine of Islam, the wife of Abu Bakr. Y'all remember I did her story, Aisha, radiallahu anha's mother, Ruman. After the Battle of Hunain, which came after Mu'tah, Abu Bakr's wife, Ruman, died. And when he lost her, that's when he approached Asma, who was the widow of Ja'far, and he asked her to marry him, and she agreed. And you guys know who Abu Bakr was. He was the father of Aisha, radiallahu anha. He was the second of the two in the cave. He was the first caliph after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Asma too was one of the early Muslims. She was also knowledgeable. She migrated twice for the sake of Allah. And she was the wife of Ja'far, the flying martyr. So when Abu Bakr approached her for marriage, she accepted. And her and Abu Bakr were married, and she lived with him, and they were a happy couple. She knew what her rights were as a wife, and she fulfilled it. And she also knew what his rights were as a husband, because Allah had been sending down all those verses of the Quran about women's rights, Surah Nur, Surah Anisa, and all of that. Asma studied those verses and became the perfect wife for Abu Bakr, the perfect mother. She even gave him a son. She gave birth to Muhammad, the son of Abu Bakr, during the farewell pilgrimage. In fact, when she went into labor, Abu Bakr wanted to send her back to Medina, but the Prophet told him to let her make the major wudu and then rededicate herself after the child is born in offering the pilgrimage. So she was with Abu Bakr when they did the final pilgrimage with the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And to show how good a marriage Asma had with Abu Bakr, when Abu Bakr became the caliph and was about to die, he ordered that Asma wash his body. And this is where that hadith in Bukhari comes from, that a woman can wash the body of her husband. Because when Abu Bakr died, Asma Bint Umays washed his body. He had her wash his body because, he knew he could trust her, because he didn't want somebody to wash his body and go back and talk about how he looked. That was a big thing. You don't want people to see what injuries you got. Abu Bakr fought in all the battles with the Prophet. Plus, he was the caliph over the Muslims and fought against the Romans. He didn't want the people to see what type of injuries he sustained. So he trusted Asma Bint Umays, and she washed his body. And by the way, we talked about how Aisha radiallahu anha tells us that after her mother Ruman died, she was happy to learn that her father was marrying Asma Bint Umays, because all the women respected her, because she was one of the originals to convert to Islam. And after Abu Bakr died, Umar gave Asma a pension of 1,000 dirhams. So she would receive 1,000 dirhams every month. And guess what happened? She was such a righteous woman that right after she fulfilled her waiting period, Ali, who was the younger brother of her first husband, Jafar. For those of you who don't know, Ali and Jafar were brothers. When after Abu Bakr died and she finished her waiting period, Ali offered to marry her, and he did. So she married Ali, and he treated her son Muhammad as if he were his own. And Asma had 2 more sons by Ali, Yahya and On. So this shows how it was, marrying a woman was a great thing to do, a widowed woman. And even if it was my brother's wife, my brother who died, his wife, Ali married her, because she was a good woman, and he wanted to take care, of his brother's children, and also Abu Bakr's. And she bore him 2 sons. Asma lived with Ali as a noble woman. She fulfilled all her marital obligations. Again, they say, even Aisha radiallahu anha says she was a perfect wife. She took those words from the Quran about how women should be in their home, how a woman should be a great helpmate to her husband. She took that responsibility seriously. And she was there to be a good source of strength for her husband. Now, this is what makes history. This is what show how we can see how intelligent Asma Bint Umays was. This is a woman that was married to 3 great men. She was married to Jafar, the one who spoke to Negus. Then she married Abu Bakr, the first man who will enter paradise after the prophet. And then she married Ali, Jafar's brother, and the 4th man who will enter paradise after the prophet. And she had children by all these men. Well, we have this authentic hadith. One day, Muhammad, the son of Jafar, and Muhammad, her son by Abu Bakr, they were arguing with each other as to which one of them was better and which one of their fathers was the best. Ali was sitting there listening, and he looked at Asma and he said, Asma, why don't you answer the question for them? Now, a lot of people might say, why did Ali ask her that? Did Ali want to test her intelligence? Or did he just want to know whose love who of those men she really loved? Well, when the question was asked, which one was better, Jafar or Abu Bakr, listen to her answer. This is what she said. She said, to answer the question, my sons, I have never seen a young man better than Jafar. And I have never seen a middle-aged man better than Abu Bakr. So there's your answer. And when she gave this answer, the boys stopped arguing and they walked away. And Ali smiled and he said, if Jafar was the best young man, and if Abu Bakr was the best middle-aged man, he said, where does that leave me, Asma? And of course they laughed. She said, it leaves you as being the man I'm with now. And they both laughed. See how, what woman would have thought of an answer like that? That's my answer. If anyone asks me, because I've been married several times, well, I've never known a better man, a better young man than my first. I've never known a better middle-aged man than my second. And I've never known a better old man than the old man. Hello. And whoever I happen to be with, well, where does that leave us? You got the Cupid dial, baby. What do we learn from her? You see how intelligent these women were. These women were not invisible. They were invincible. And these women were intelligent. So how is it that we have men today thinking that women are of less intelligence? Well, Asma, her journey from this world into the next happened to come when she received the news of the death of her son, Muhammad, the son of Abu Bakr. For those of you who can remember when all the fitna broke out, her son, Muhammad, the son of Abu Bakr, he was the governor of Egypt at the time of Ali's caliphate. The rebels ended up killing him, and then they killed Ali. When the news reached Asma that she lost both her son and her husband, that's when her body began to go out on her. She went to the prayer place in her home and she made 2 voluntary rakats. And then the people began to notice that she was bleeding from her chest.
And as a result of that, she lost so much blood that she died. So we don't know if it was tuberculosis. Back in those days, they didn't have the medicine that we have today. You know, but whatever it was, some say it was tuberculosis. Allah knows best. But she ended up dying. She bled to death from her chest. So that's the story of Asma, the daughter of Umays. Subhanallah, what a fortunate woman this was to be married to three of the best men of this nation. Jafar, the one that could speak the words of Allah to the Negus, to cause the Negus to ignore the pleas of the Quraysh and let the Muslims live there in Abyssinia. What a great man this was. And then to be married to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who was as-Siddiq, subhanallah. And then after him and his death, to be married to Ali, who was the fourth best of this nation, subhanallah. This is something, guys, you know, a woman, those are bragging rights that any woman wishes she could brag and boast about. I know I could. I wished I can brag and boast about being married to three of the best. So I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Are there any questions or comments? Wa alaikum salam, Sister Amal from Columbus. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. MashaAllah. You're not far from me. You're just an hour from me. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, any questions or comments? Go ahead. Is she on her? Okay, well, sister here wants to know. She had blood in her discharge. Is she on her period? Did her period start? No one knows her birth date, so we don't know her age. Remember, this is the beauty of Islam. Allah kept hidden. We don't even know the Prophet Muhammad's birthday or Abu Bakr's. Allah kept all of these companions' birthdays and stuff hidden so that we wouldn't worship them. So we don't know how old she was. There's no birth date. I would say that, she was probably around the same age as Ali, but Ali was martyred. So she was starting to get old, but she wasn't an old lady. Yeah. She wasn't no old lady. She didn't live to be almost 100 like Asma, Abu Bakr's daughter. Abu Bakr's daughter was in her 90s when she died. Yeah. Okay, Sister Howard, what I mean is she hasn't had a menses period at dot. She hasn't had a menses at all. Because discharge comes from from several things. That's why I'm trying to figure out, what is she discharging from? Is this the discharge from her menses? Is this a discharge from having sex? Or is it a discharge, for something else? I don't know. I have to know what's wrong with her. Women discharge after having sex. Women discharge after menses. So I don't know. What's her discharge? We just don't discharge. I don't know what it's from. Okay, somebody asking me, can they pray? Allah, well, and you're not a Muslim, I'm going to give you the correct answer. No, Allah does not accept your prayers. Allah does not accept your prayers unless, number one, you believe in him. And then number two, you have to pray the way he legislated. If you don't believe in Allah the way he commands you to believe in him, and you don't pray the way he commands us to pray, no, none of your good deeds are accepted. Not your prayers, not your fast, not your charity, not anything. Okay, well, it's probably her menses. If she sees blood in herself, Sister Howard, then it's her menses. Treat it like a menses. Tell her she waits till the bleeding stops. Yes, Allah tells us that in the Quran. He does not accept the deeds, the good deeds of a kafir. That's clear. Allah is clear. Unless you submit to him, all your deeds, as Allah says, will be a mirage. It will be like a mirage. He doesn't accept any good deeds unless you believe in him and worship him the way he commanded. This is clear. This is the Quran. And also the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it. Allah does not accept the deeds of an unbeliever. The Prophet warned us, don't be bankrupt on the day of judgment, where you stand before Allah and none of your deeds are accepted. So you have to be a Muslim. A Muslim is a person that submits to Allah. You have to declare, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And you have to be sincere in that. Otherwise, you're nothing. And Allah tells us that. It's just my job to repeat what he says. The truth is not a pretty pill to swallow. But as Daya, we're not here to try to appease you. We're just doing what Allah commands us to do. We answer to Allah, not to the people. And the truth hurts. That's just the reality. Allah says in the Quran, anyone who dies upon a way other than Islam, it will never be accepted from them. All right. Yeah. But for Sister Howard, tell her to treat it like a menses. When the bleeding stops, then that's when she can pray and do other stuff. But since she's bleeding, tell her don't do anything. Consider the menses. Yeah. Any other questions in the Zoom room? Mina, the rest of y'all?
I didn't have a question. Oh, I did have a question. Fatima had 5 kids by Ali, right? And then he had more kids, or he just had the one by
Ali
Asma.
was
and
married
then...
a million times, girl. He had a lot of kids. Yeah. Like I tell you, these brothers and sisters believed in marriage. They got married. They had a lot of children, 80 kids. Remember, I did the story of Sulaim, her Honest. Look how many children Honest had. He had 80 children, 80. These men got married. And they didn't hesitate to marry widowed women. So yes, and they had children. Yes. Yeah. Well, That's what it is. Tell her she shouldn't be confused. It's called a menses. Remember, the prophet said a menses is not determined by the number of days you bleed. The menses is determined by the color of the blood. So she got blood coming out of her. She's on a menses. Don't have relations. Don't have sex or anything until it stops. She has to do like Aisha, radiallahu anha, said, stop rushing it. Wait until it's clear that there is no blood at all, because that's a menses. The menses doesn't have to flow like a river. The menses can spot, just like she's doing, especially after a miscarriage. That happens when you have miscarriages. I had a miscarriage before. When you miscarry, you spot. That's a menses. So tell her, treat it as a menses. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah.
Oh, Sister Layla, I did have another question.
Yeah.
Asma was in the first migration with Habiba. Like all of them was in one group when they went.
Yeah, but she stayed. Yeah, they all migrated to Abyssinia, and she stayed there. Remember, she was with yeah. You talking about the wife of the? I was getting ready to say that's right. She's with the wife of the prophet. Exactly. She stayed there just like her. Remember, the prophet married Habiba and didn't get to be with her until right during this time at Damuta. That's when they came. Remember, the prophet had to deal. He had to deal with Sophia. He had all these new wives. Sophia was a new wife. Habiba he just got to consummate with her. Also Maymuna. He had 3 new ones. Don't forget Maria was in there too. As a slave girl. And like I told y'all, he was a man. That's when I had to tell Moses to go sit down. He's been replaced. The prophet could handle that. That's a man. He was getting, he had to get Habiba accommodated, plus Maymuna, who was still in Mecca. Then he had just gotten Sophia. And then he's still dealing with Maria the cop. Nobody wanted her to live with them. And he had to get a place for her. He was rolling. He was a moving man, plus dealing with the battles, dealing with the Quraysh, dealing with the Romans. Y'all see how the prophet was rocking and rolling. Ain't nobody suffered more than him. That's why I tell y'all, not even Gaza. Don't ever get it twisted into thinking that somebody today got it worse than how the prophet had it. He was dealing with all of that, plus conveying the message of Islam, plus dealing with jealous Aisha, dealing with Hafsa. He was moving. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, well, Karthik, there's nothing I can tell you. I mean, you asked me a question. I gave you the Islamic answer and nothing else I can say. I'm sorry. Everybody's got a sad sob story, but we all find the law. I mean, the truth hurts. We all got a sad sob story. A lot of us got mental health issues, but we still pursue a law. You don't want to pursue religion. That's because you don't believe in a law. But the difference with us is, we have mental health issues. We have anxiety. We're dealing with what's going on in Gaza, but we choose to pursue religion. That's the difference. That's the difference between you and us. With all that's going on with us, we choose a law. You don't. That's why we're believers and you're not. That's the difference between you and us. That's the reality. I mean, what else can I say? He said he's got mental conditions, but he choose to not pursue religion. Well, we got mental issues and we choose to pursue it. It's the difference. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Yeah, all of this was going on with the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was dealing with all these wives, plus his companions, plus trying to bring together, the Quraysh, and the new converts and the old ones. I mean, it was just coming at the Prophet left and right. But he handled it like a pro, with dignity, balance, and humility.
Layla, this is kind of off the subject, but what were the two surahs about the women? I know number 4, and what was the other one?
Surah Nur and Surah Nisa.
N-U-R?
Yeah, the Surah Nur. Allah was sending down Surah Nur, which has a lot of rights in it about women issues. Also Nisa and also Baqarah. Baqarah got stuff about women too. Yeah, so Allah was sending down all these verses about marriage, relationship, husbands, wives, women, because again, Islam came at that period in the world when people didn't believe in religion. People had no rights. The Dark Ages. Yeah. Yeah.
Sister Layla, I had a question too. I know you answered it, but I didn't get to write it down or anything. But I'm just like paraphrasing it. With the brother-in-law, it's like death, but once you divorce him, later on down the line, his brother can still marry you. That's the reason why.
That's
okay,
why
so
death.
But you don't have to be dead. Okay, you don't have to be dead.
No, death means no. That's a Arabic. That's just like saying that's just Arabic slang. Arabic talk. No, we don't mean that that he's dying. No. When the Prophet said the brother-in-law is like death, he's saying that he can destroy you because he's not a mahram to you. Your wife can marry him. She might like him. She might want him. She gonna hook up with him. That's what it's saying. That's what that means. Keep your wife away from your brother, because your brother can turn her on, because your brother is like you. He might look like you. He might have characteristics like you, but he might be better than you. And she might want him instead of you. So keep him away from her if you want to keep your marriage. That's what that means. You understand?
Yeah.
Because I can marry your brother. Your brother can marry her. If you divorce her, he'd probably be the first one knocking down her door. So don't let him get close to her. Don't let your brother or your sister get close to your husband or your wife, because they're lawful for marriage. Look at all these soap operas. Look at The Young and the Restless. What do? They sleep with their father-in-law and their brother-in-law. Kafirs do it all the time, messing around with my sister. I was watching that paternity court. Woman pregnant by the man's brother. I mean, the Kafirs do it all the time. Your brother is lawful gain. So keep him away from your wife. That's what the Prophet meant when he said the in-law is death. He said all in-laws, keep them away, because their in-law can hook up. You come home, there your brother is. Y'all understand? It doesn't mean that somebody gonna kill you. No, that's what it means. Yeah.
No, I was saying that like how Zafar and Ali was brothers, but Zafar was already dead. I was talking about like that. Yeah. It was still lawful. Okay.
Your mama's sister, your auntie, Fresno, did you have that talk with your daughter yet? Fresno.
What, Nasheeba?
You hear what she asking? Tell her.
Yeah, Mina. Even like if the man was say, okay, like me and Cheryl, like what she said, Luke was married to me. We got a divorce. He married Cheryl.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
looking for him.
It's lawful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's lawful.
So they're saying that the man does not have to be dead.
No, that's not what that hadith means. No.
Yeah, that's what she's asking, if the man has to be dead.
And that's what I told her. No. Look at her mother and her aunt. No, you don't have to die. No, it's lawful. It's lawful. In-laws say he ain't no mahram. You can marry any man that's not a mahram to you. Your brother-in-law is not a mahram. So if your sister divorce him, he's lawful gain. Everybody understand? That's a mahram. A mahram, if he's not a mahram, I can marry him. No matter who he is. Long as he's not a mahram, he's lawful. That's why Islam sets those barriers. So since he is lawful, you better keep him away if you want to keep your wife, because she can divorce you and marry him. I can divorce you and marry your brother. You better get up out of here, dude. Don't let me see your brother. If he's young and Italian stallion, throw you to the curb. Come on, bro. Let's go. That's life. It happens every day. Any other questions, guys? And back in those days, they all remember before Islam, the woman became the property of her husband's brother anyway. Did y'all remember I taught y'all that? Back in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th century, if a woman's husband died, she became the property of his brother. That means I'm now your brother's wife. You know, so that women, that's always been how it was. But with Islam put rules there, you know. They not mahrams, they're lawful, so keep them away. Because that was a big problem back in those days, the brother taking the woman. We had kings in European history. Some of those kings were sick. Any woman that wanted to marry their sons had to have the king first. That's sick. That's European history. Yeah, that sex stuff is sick. But Islam put borders to prevent that crap from happening. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Tomorrow is Tuesday. Make sure that everybody reads the next 3 pages of Diluting Wala Well Better. And also tomorrow night, we'll have the hadith class. We'll be going over the next hadith in that book by Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Atlee on termites, things that destroy the iman. Okay. All right. I'm going to log out, and inshallah, I'll see everybody tomorrow. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. This thing here, I'm going to cut this. I don't use this summary thing. The reason why I stopped using